Good morning, 7th grade scholars. Today for ELT, you are starting with division of fractions. So when we divide fractions, don't ask why, flip the second fraction and multiply. So there's basically 3 steps we follow when we're finding the quotient, aka dividing. So the first thing I do is check and make sure I have 2 fractions. So I see I have a fraction and a mixed number. So I'm going to turn this mixed number right here into a improper fraction. So I'm going to copy down the first fraction and the division sign, and then I'm going to turn this into a improper fraction. 10 times 5 is 50, plus 1 is 51. My denominator stays the same. And then I'm going to keep the first fraction the same, change my division to multiplication, and flip this. So keep, change to multiplication, and then flip. After you do that, you multiply straight across like always. A negative 4 times a positive 10 is a negative 40, over 3 times 51 is 153. So for number 1, the quotient of negative 4/3 divided by 5 1/10 is negative 40 over 153. Looking at number 2, we do the same thing. I need to make sure that I have 2 fractions first. I don't. I have 5/3 divided by 2. To turn the 2 into a fraction, I can just put it over 1. And then I'm just going to follow my regular rules. So I'm going to keep the first fraction, change my division to multiplication, and flip. I multiply straight across and I get 5 over 6 as my quotient. After you do some fractions, you have some integers division, and then you have some decimal division. So remember, when you're dividing with decimals, the first number, like the 0 and 6/10, is our dividend, divided by 1 2/10. I cannot have a decimal in the divisor. So if there's a decimal in the divisor, I move it once, and I get 12 and 6. 12 doesn't go into 6, so I add a decimal and a 0. I move the decimal up. 12 goes into 60 5 times. 12 times 5 is 60. Subtracting gets 0. So this would equal 5/10. The next thing you're doing is multiplication. So when you multiply, same rules as division, and by that I mean 2 negatives make a positive, positive and a negative make a negative. When you're multiplying with decimals, it's very important I would set up the problem vertically. Then you have to count the number of decimal digits. So I have 1, 2 numbers behind the decimal. After you count that, you just multiply like normal. So I get 4, 8, carry the 0, 7, 14. So I should get 1,554, but then I move the decimal twice. Boom, boom. And I get 15 and 54 hundredths positive. After you do that, you're going to look at some multiplying with fractions. So same thing, we always multiply fractions straight across. So if you look at number 32, I have a negative times a positive, so it's going to be a negative. 8 times 7 is 56. 5 times 4 is 20. And then you might be asked to simplify, you might not. But when you simplify, this is an improper fraction, so it's 56 divided by 20. 20 goes into 56 twice. And I would get 2 and 16 over 20. And then I could simplify the fraction part by 4. And I get 4 over 5, so that would be 2 and 4/5. Looking at a problem like number 35, remember, before you can do anything, you have to make sure that you have 2 fractions first. So I'm going to turn this into an improper fraction. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15 over 4, times negative 9 over 1. And then you just multiply straight across. For number 36 and the rest, you're finding volume. So volume equals length times width times height. So I have 10, 10, and 10. So I have my length, my width, and my height. So volume equals 10 times 5 times 10. The volume is going to equal 500 miles cubed. You need the cubed, you need the units, or else it's not right.